G'day YouTube, and welcome to Aussie Backyard Food. Today I wanted to talk to you about how we can have a particular ingredient all year round. Even though you might think of it as being seasonal, like tomatoes, what we can do with tomatoes is heat them up, blend them and whack them in a jar. As long as, like with this passata that I've made, it goes in nice and hot, preferably over 90 degrees, then turned upside down so the inside of the lid's sterilised. You even hear the vacuum seal pop an hour after it when it starts to cool down and that vacuum is created. That is good for, well, I won't say it's good forever, but it's certainly good for a couple of years. Another way we can preserve fruit is to make jam out of it. That's some mulberry jam I made a few months ago. We've got our honey here. Honey lasts forever. In fact, it was told to me that in Tutankhamun's tomb they found 2,000-year-old honey and it was still edible. That's one of the magical characteristics of honey. And as you can see, we're getting a little bit low on our stocks of honey, so we're sweating on the bees and we should have a harvest sometime in the next couple of weeks. But the main purpose of today's episode was to talk about how we're going to preserve our greens. A beautiful vegetable like cabbage, particularly in extreme northern hemisphere climates, traditionally was only available for those warmer periods of the year, those warmer seasons. So what did they do to make cabbage available through winter? They fermented it. So that's what we're going to do today. I love fermented vegetables and they are so good for you. So off into the garden we go. And welcome to my veggie garden. I'll just give you a quick pan around. Got some berries, blackberries over there. There's the end of my tomato vines. They really need to come out so I can get some more veggies in. And here's our cabbages, the cabbages in question for today's video. You can see the benefit of trying to stay organic is that you don't really ever need to wash your cabbages because there's no chemicals, no poisons on them. You can see, hopefully you can see that spider web there above them. You know, you might get the odd insect on your cabbage, but really I'd rather that than a truckload of toxins. So by enclosing the vegetable garden, you can keep the majority of the bugs off. And that way everything you're bringing inside is relatively bug free, but certainly chemical free. Look at that. Not bad, eh? A couple more still have a bit of growing left to do, but you can see this one's a little bit old. Probably should have been picked a week ago, but it'll be fine to ferment. Of course, all these outer leaves will go to the chooks, which they will love, and what they don't eat just gets dug through the compost bin by their own feet. There you go. You can see just how much the chooks enjoy those cabbage offcuts. Nothing goes to waste around here. once your cabbage pops open like that, you know it probably should have been picked yesterday, because it really provides an easy access for any slugs or snails to get in. But that's alright. We're only fermenting it. It's not anything we have to worry about presentation wise on a 5-star restaurant, so it's all good. So now it's simply a matter of chopping up all the cabbages nice and fine and throwing them into a food grade bucket like this one, with roughly about 2 tablespoons of salt per cabbage. So let's get into it. Check that out, eh? Beautiful. Bit of salt as we go. As you can see, it's not an exact science. So, as you might have seen, I've got 6 cabbages in there. There's no need to add any extra water. All the water that is needed lies within the cells of the cabbage leaf. The salt simply draws it out and makes the brine that the fermentation can occur in. So the next thing, all you need to do is find a plate. I find works well, made by my son. He's very clever, don't you think? Put that on top. And then weigh it down to something heavy. And then before you know it, come back and check it in 24 hours. You should see that all the cabbage has sunk below the level of the liquid, and that's the way you want to keep it for at least a week. Okay. 24-hour progress report on our funky fermentation. Here it is down here in the bucket. Tea towel for keeping the dust out, and just peering inside our bucket you can see just how much liquid is in there, and that's all just come out of the cabbage. You can see the odd bubble rising to the surface. That's the bacteria just starting to work its way into consuming all the sugars in the cabbage. Our fermentation has been bubbling away for a week, so come and have a look. So that's what it should look like, bit of froth on top, just a sign that the bacteria is doing its business in there, growing and multiplying. It should have a sort of nice vinegary sort of cabbage-like smell, which would indicate that you've got the right sort of bacteria growing in there and that it's progressing nicely. Well, now it's time to bottle it all up. Okay, so we take our weight off. Dig our plate out. Alright, it's time to tell you a little bit about my containers that I've created for the next stage of fermentation. They're just simply old yogurt containers that we've cleaned up once we've finished off the yogurt inside. I bought some little airlocks off eBay. They're about $2 each. Simply drilled a 1/2 inch sized hole through the lid. I actually used a blunt drill bit. I found that works the best because it sort of heats its way through, melts its way through, and gives you a nice smooth edge on your hole rather than splitting the lid, which is quite thin. I'm also going to use a jar for one of them, just so that we can visibly see what's going on, just for interest's sake as much as anything else. I've found in the past it's quite interesting to watch how the cabbage changes over the weeks. It transforms really. In the past I've also not bothered going to the length of putting in airlocks, just because I hadn't gone that far really, but I thought it's time to get a little bit more professional this time, so I've got the airlocks. In the past I used to have to actually physically crack the lid to allow the carbon dioxide to escape, which you wouldn't want to forget to do, because if you did, after a few days you might find you got a little time bomb on your hands. Okay, so I'm going to use tongs to get the cabbage out. Just load up your container. Try and spread the liquid out equally amongst all of the containers. Okay, so I've actually consolidated into 2 containers and 1 jar. I've simply poured a bit of white vinegar into the airlock just to slightly above the vents, and that should prevent any nasties from getting back inside our airlocked containers. Here's our observation jar. It'll be interesting to see how that changes over the next few weeks while it's finishing its final ferment. I've noticed in the past that it does change quite a bit over the weeks. These containers are really useful. They're food grade, too good to throw out in my opinion. I store honey in them, all sorts of things. Yeah, so anyway, I look forward to catching back up with you next time.